Well, it's kind of been a while. First, what happened and where have I been? The quick version, you don't care. The long version, you still don't care, and I really don't want to have my personal life involved with these videos. I will, however, say this. Things happened and I have had very little motivation to do this. I tried working on and off, but between 3 different computers dying, the camera that I used broke and I can't afford a new one right now. There was also accidentally deleting all of my work once. I just didn't want to work on it, and now I've completely rewritten what I originally had. It doesn't help that I personally think that these are the worst 2 volumes, so it became a giant slog. And it also didn't help that doing these videos also ceased being fun. And also looking back, I think they're mostly horrible. Next, I kind of promised Ash the Bloody, the quick version, a giant meh. It falls into the retelling of Tales of the Abyss from Ash's perspective, and that's not interesting to me. If it showed the 7 years between Ash's kidnapping and the time he spent as a god general before the game began, that would be interesting, and it does for a few pages, but then it goes back to retelling the game. Sorry, I have 2 copies of the game and an anime for that. So, back to Pokemon. The biggest thing to happen in Volume 10 is the artist switch. As stated previously, the first 9 volumes were drawn by Mado. However, she fell ill and was no longer able to draw. The new artist is Satoshi Yamamoto, and he is still drawing the series to this day. His artwork is okay. It has definitely improved over the years. Right now, it kind of feels like it lacks that little bit of extra weight for motion. It's really stiff and off at times. I said that I thought these were the worst 2 volumes, and because of that, I'm not going to go through the volumes like I had previously. I'm going to try something new. Well, let's start by talking about our hero and 3rd Johto Pokédex holder, Crystal. She is based off of the first female playable character in this series, and I will acknowledge that a female game character was a much needed option and respect that it's there and the importance it holds in the series. As for the character in Pokemon Adventures, I do not like her. She is my least favorite character in the entire series. Why? Well, I don't want to say that they choose one gameplay element and base an entire character around that, since, at least prior to this, they really don't. But here, that's exactly what happens. Her big gimmick is capturing Pokemon. And that's all she does. That's all that defines her. She captures Pokemon. She is that unskippable capturing tutorial personified. Do you see a problem yet? One of the many reasons I read and like this series is to see stuff that can't happen in the game. Things such as Yellow ending a battle without landing an attack, the crazy super attacks, the layers of strategies that aren't possible in the game, just basically how a real-time battle will play out differently than a turn-based one. It's also sort of the reason why I like watching the anime at times. By comparison, capturing, something that you do in the game and do a lot of, is boring. Even in this series, we've seen plenty of exciting captures so far that easily outclass anything she does. What makes her so different? Well, she's aiming to fill up the Pokédex. Well, actually, to be more accurate, she's being paid to fill up the Pokédex. And minor spoilers, she does succeed, at least twice. Meanwhile, I, a player of the games, can't. If I've ever had any enthusiasm for this supposed goal in the series, it has long since been replaced with apathy. Because of event Pokemon, I have long since stopped caring about attempting to complete the Pokédex. The only reason I'm even remotely close to having the Pokédex complete is because of transferring Pokemon forward throughout the games. Also, because she's only actually aiming to fill up the Pokédex, she has her team already. Throughout the 5 remaining volumes, there are 2 major changes to her team. Number 1, she gets Chikorita rather early on and evolves throughout the story. And number 2, the 11th hour Pokemon during the final battle. This is her first problem. There is no growth to her team. It just remains stagnant. The changes that do happen are completely predictable. Maybe it's just me, but when I play Pokemon, I don't have a set team in mind. I like seeing how the team grows and develops and how it changes over the course of the game. At its core, Pokemon is a team-building game. You have to form a team of 6 of these 700+ creatures, and there may be a time when your current team is ill-equipped for the current situation. This was also a major part of the appeal of Twitch Plays Pokemon for me. Suddenly half of their team was released and they lost their important Pokemon. How do they recover? How does their team change? Every other character so far has had their team grow. Red started with Poliwhirl, got Bulbasaur, caught Pikachu, and so on. Yellow had got a Rattata from Red, got a Doduo, borrowed Pikachu, caught Caterpie, received Graveler and Lord Helix from Brock and Misty. Crystal, on the other hand, just had her Pokemon magically appear in front of her. And that's not hyperbole, that actually happens. If there is progress in the volumes, it feels exactly like the same as progress in a filler episode in an anime. Stuff happened, but at the end of the day it's not that much to write home about, and seems to be forgotten about by the next episode. The only actual proof that she caught anything is in the notes at the back of the book. She just feels like she's going through the motions, and it probably doesn't help that in less than 50 pages the entire premise of the character implodes on itself. She sees a Flappy and Dunsparce on a boat in distress, and immediately checks the Pokédex for information about them. The same Pokédex that she's supposed to be filling up. It's just a moment akin to Ash scanning a Pokemon that he owned or has seen and scanned before for new viewers, only in this case she shouldn't be checking the Pokédex for information since she's actually is supposed to be the one inputting it, and in the case that she had caught them beforehand to input the information, why would she need to check the Pokédex for information that she had inputted at most only a few hours prior? If it's just a moment of showing the audience the information, it makes her look exactly like Ash in these moments. A dumbass. Going back to Flappy and Dunsparce, they try to make the captures exciting by putting people or Pokemon in dangerous situations, but it's been done before and was done much better back in Volume 2 with the Safari Zone, where it was both a life and death situation, and Red didn't have his Pokemon. He had to capture or die. Or how about in Volume 3, where the fate of the world was at stake if Mewtwo wasn't captured? I'm not one to do the whole Red worshipping thing, but if those were the captures of a normal trainer, and if your capture specialist who has been training for 5 years can't top them, you're in trouble. Unfortunately, Crystal's captures are mundane in comparison to what we have seen before. She is also incredibly flat, having no personality beyond being obsessed with capturing. Allegedly, she is supposed to be this loving and caring character. Unfortunately, I don't see it. She volunteers at an orphanage, and she defends the kids when wild Pokemon attack. That's about the extent of her loving and caring. It's 2 small bullet points that only occur in the first 20 pages and are forgotten about very, very quickly. For the volunteering at an orphanage, despite what the text says, I'm more inclined to believe that she actually lives there, and she's on this quest because it's her home. Maybe I'm just super cynical and jaded, but I find it more believable that the government or private sponsors have failed to finance the school/orphanage, or Earl, the head of the school/orphanage, is embezzling all the money he gets, and Crystal has taken matters into her own hands because she lives there rather than it being out of the goodness of her own heart. And while she defended the kids, her actions and what were shown after that doesn't leave the impression that she actually cares for the kids. She gets away from them the first opportunity she has, not even actually bothering to tell them or Earl what she's doing. Earl is also completely in the dark when the people come to repair the orphanage. With her capturing, she is emotionless towards her captures. She doesn't care about the Pokemon, she is nothing more than a machine, just getting another Pokemon to check off her list. She also ditches her first Pokemon faster than Twitch Plays Pokemon does with their fire starters. Okay, seriously, this is actually bothering me. What was the point of Smoochum? Seriously, why was it there? I fully understand having Mean Look to stop Pokemon from escaping and it rounds out her capturing team, but as soon as she gets Chikorita, it's benched permanently. Wouldn't it have just been better to have only 5 Pokemon to start with? She wouldn't have had a Pokemon that had Mean Look, but that doesn't exactly seem like a big loss to me. The one time it was actually used, it was immediately followed up with Spore. That seems a bit redundant. You're stopping them from escaping so you can immediately put them to sleep, where they're in a state where they can't move and wouldn't be able to escape in the first place. The incomprehensible strategic genius of a Pokédex holder. And before we go any further, yes, in Generation 2, some select Pokemon could run from battle. I checked and Slugma wasn't one of them. Beyond Suicune, this is never an issue for her, or even brought up. The other reason why I'm questioning what the point of Smoochum was is because we also learned that in this world, the limit of 6 Pokemon per party is just a suggestion and peer pressure. I'm not kidding about this. Professor Oak says that the Pokemon League has decreed that a ratio of 1 human to 6 Pokemon is ideal. So she could have 7 Pokemon. There is nothing actually stopping her other than she only has 6 Pokemon because the games only allow 6 Pokemon. Even though the storage system is still down and everyone would know this, and probably wouldn't bat an eye, but she still benches it anyway. In any other story arc or anywhere else, this would have been a great little hand wave, but here, with this situation, there are a few moments after this that it shows they're willing to follow the game's rules to a fault. Before we move on, there is one thing that I do like. Bill made a device that Crystal could use to transfer her Pokemon that she caught to Professor Oak. However, it's only a one-way street. She can't retrieve them. This device is based off of a real-life device that linked the Game Boy Color to a cell phone, and that you could wirelessly trade in battle with others who had the Crystal version, although that was only in the Japanese version of Crystal. These two volumes also have another protagonist, Suicune. For the interest of full disclosure, it's currently about my 7th least favorite legendary Pokemon. Suicune's powers described in the games is basically being the personification of the northern winds, and it can purify polluted water. Here, Suicune's job is to introduce every single gym leader by humiliating them through god modding. It constantly pulls abilities out of its ass, such as being able to create uber illusions. This is the dignified introduction of the Johto gym leaders. Here we have trainers who are supposed to be the top of the league and given the responsibility to give out gym badges. In the last volume, we saw the exam that each one of them had to go through. They are better than this. They would have to be better than this to pass the exam. Although I really can't say that it's their fault, since the bottom line of each battle with Suicune is better than you. Out of all of the battles with the gym leaders in these two volumes, only one actually lands a physical attack on it. Naturally, our main characters meet and fight each other in what is actually a rather good battle. Crystal outpredicts Suicune at several points and manages to get it in a Pokeball for a few seconds. But the end result is that Crystal fails to capture Suicune and enters a whiny phase, where she is incapable of capturing Pokemon. You see, for Crystal, Suicune is the first Pokemon that she has failed to capture, and this is supposed to be Crystal's major character development. Here is my reaction as a player of the games. Go cry me a river. You threw a single heavy ball at it, not even bothering to weaken it, not even using Mean Look to trap it, not that you could because you benched your Smoochum, and then it ran away because it's a roaming Pokemon. The self-proclaimed capture specialist did a beginner's mistake. You want sympathy? No, you're not getting any. And that's not even getting to the amount of times the RNG has screwed with me. The time spent capturing a legendary Pokemon. You weaken it, you do everything properly, but the RNG still messes with you and it struggles itself to death. If this was her reaction when she fails to capture a single Pokemon, for her sake, I hope she never plays Pokemon Shuffle. Actually, wait, no, I want her to play Pokemon Shuffle. I want her to suffer. I want her to feel the pain and agony that players of the games had to endure. How if Entei or Raikou used Roar, they were gone permanently because of programming oversights. I want her to never be able to catch Pokemon because they're only given away at events that are now over. I want her to never be able to catch event Pokemon because the item was never released, because it would be too confusing for players to use. I want her to only be able to catch one of a trio and is chosen in advance based on her starter Pokemon. I want her to only be able to get a Pokemon from a spin-off game, and that you can't reset to get another one because they programmed it so that you can only get one per cartridge ever. I want her to waste hours of her life looking across a gigantic river for a single Pokemon with only 6 squares that it actually appears on and it changes daily. I want her to wait with bated breath for the Pokeball to shake 3 times and then click. I want her to experience the Pokeballs not working the way they were advertised. I want her perfect little team to be broken apart and separated because she has to carry around HM slaves. I want her to be unable to catch certain Pokemon or never even being able to encounter them in the wild no matter how hard she looks because they aren't available in the game she's named after. I want her to suffer. And that is her biggest problem. She doesn't suffer. What I just listed is only a small fraction of what someone who is trying to fill up the Pokédex has to go through. With currently 802 of these creatures, or even back then with only 251, it should be a long journey with no end in sight. Crystal should be traveling throughout all the corners of the region searching for Pokémon. She has been doing the exact opposite of this. In the course of a single day, she has managed to catch 142 Pokemon. At least I'm assuming it's a day, it's actually a bit hard to tell how much time has passed. Anyways, the point is, back then she managed to fill out 57% of the Pokédex in a single day. It's not impossible, and it's even easier for her when she has the creatures not being where they are in the games to contend with, but there's a point where you have to say she's a Mary Sue. Here's Viz's version of the author notes for Volume 10. The new character who appears in this volume is a special one to me. As someone who agonizes over never catching the legendaries, I thought it would be nice if I could capture them in the book. She is an idealized stand-in for the author, and everything about her so far has been next to flawless. Flawless victory after flawless victory with such precision that she's just a machine. And if we take into account a future story arc, they are also all metagame ready. No, I'm not joking. It's a plot point that she has every single non-legendary Pokemon and they can take on the battle frontier. This is not a character that embodies the trials and tribulations of trying to fill up the Pokédex. This is a character who embodies injecting Pokemon through action replay or QR codes using Smogon's sets. And before you say anything, yes, Fries, I'm fully aware of the hypocrisy. The only problem that Crystal has faced was dealing with the omnipotent Suicune. So, where were we? Oh right, her character arc. The only redeeming thing about this was that Crystal got slapped by her mother. Unfortunately, in Viz's version, we learn that Crystal's mother is a pirate from the One Piece universe and is capable of using haki. Ugh, this edit is still hideous. Ugh, her chin could stab out someone's eye. I really don't like this character arc. First of all, Crystal has had so little screen time so far that we don't know that much about her. She doesn't really have a character that can change, and as a result, by the end of this, nothing feels accomplished. She just goes back to how she was beforehand, capturing more Pokemon. This isn't exactly helped by the focus being taken off of her and Gold and Silver entering back into the picture during the next volume. Even in this volume, it switches back to Suicune and the gym leaders for most of it. She's out of focus for the rest of the 3 volumes, becoming a distressed damsel in volume 12, and then sticking around Gold. She does next to nothing after this volume is done. Next, no one actually seems to know what the breakdown is actually from. Her mother's narration says it's the fear of failure, while Crystal is going, wah, 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 I didn't understand Suicune's feelings. Okay, if this breakdown is from what her mother is saying and it's from the fear of failure, this was seriously her first failure ever. Every other capture she has ever done has had no problems. She's never knocked out a wild Pokemon with a critical hit. No other Pokemon has run away. She hasn't ever run out of Pokeballs, or they broke. In 5 years, this was the first failure she had. No, I refuse to believe that, and I'm calling bullshit on that. Next, if highly emotional 11-year-olds are going out into the world, shouldn't that be the first thing that they're taught? That failure is okay and can be used to improve yourself? It just sort of sounds like her teacher really sucked. Although, to be fair to Crystal, we do live in a world where kids can't fail, because that might hurt their feelings. And to continue being fair to Crystal, who her teacher was changes depending on the page. It flips between saying her mother trained her, and then we have a flashback where we see she was self-taught. Her mother is nowhere to be seen, as a 5 or 6-year-old girl is alone in the mountains, with 2 broken arms for at least a month. Seriously, this is another reason why I believe that she actually lives at the orphanage. Social services took action for a serious case of neglect. If the breakdown was from what Crystal was saying and it was her not understanding Suicune's feelings, first of all, no, that's stupid. Suicune has no one to blame but itself for its own personal choices, and Crystal shouldn't feel bad. Suicune made a choice and has to live with the consequences of its actions. Suicune challenged the entirety of Johto to trying to capture it before it even met Crystal. It really doesn't have the right to suddenly want to turn off the giant flashing neon lights that say, I'm a wild Pokemon, catch me, and take off the giant target it had painted on itself because it wanted to meet with Ho-Oh. And not to mention, if Suicune was on this grand mission of checking on Ho-Oh and informing Raikou and Entei of Ho-Oh's status, it still appeared in front of Bugsy and Janine of its own free will, knowing exactly what would happen and them trying to catch it before it informed Raikou and Entei of Ho-Oh. Secondly, why do you suddenly care about what Pokemon are feeling? It was only brought up because of a comment from Yucine, but it's just beyond Chikorita, this is the first time she cares about what a Pokemon thinks or feels, and it's solely about Suicune. There is no realization that her chosen profession, that her job of catching Pokemon could have affected plenty of other Pokemon, that maybe some other Pokemon that she caught could have been out gathering food for its younger children, or its pack or something, and now they're starving. Come to think of it, that would have been a nice parallel to her situation with the orphanage. It could have been a great, oh god, what am I doing moment, but nope, it could have been a nice deconstruction about how capturing Pokemon for the sake of filling the pages of the Pokedex and for research is wrong, but no, it's just all about Suicune, how Suicune is a super special snowflake that was wrong to try and imprison it in a Pokeball, and how it didn't want to be captured, but this somehow doesn't extend to any other Pokemon. What it takes for Crystal to break through this slump is just capturing a single Pokemon. That and figuring out that she had to be there for her Pokemon, which she was, all the time, before this. I don't know why this was a revelation. But yeah, as soon as she catches a single Larvitar, she's back to how she was before this mess began. I personally think that there should always be that bit of doubt somewhere, but she's back to kicking Pokeballs with such extreme precision that it's like nothing ever happened. The end result is she gains nothing and she learns nothing. The only reason she doesn't become an emotionless capturing machine again is because the plot blocks it. But once that is resolved, she's back to capturing more Pokemon and fills up the Pokédex by the epilogue. It just comes across as completely pointless. The only break in this constant sea of filler and pointlessness is Lieutenant Surge deciding to advance the plot by finding the Masked Man's base. But who cares about that? Especially when Crystal faces her first real crisis. She has to cross the ocean to get to Cyanwood, but doesn't have a Pokemon that can use Surf. Looks like she's going to have to break up her team permanently and bench some... Oh wait, she decides to wait until she can board a ship. I'm sorry, don't be hurt, you're still the best capturing team ever! And now that Meguri has evolved into Bayleaf, you're going to be even better! Okay, 3 things. First of all, hey everyone, remember Smoochum? Because that's the only place she's going to live on, in your memories. She's never coming back. Secondly, once again, your decision to only have 6 Pokemon was nothing more than a personal choice. In this universe, Pokeballs don't teleport away when you have more than 6, and even if they did, the system is still down. There is nothing stopping you from having an HM slave as a 7th, or hell, catching one and then transporting it away once you're done whatever task you needed done. You're not limited by the game's mechanics. Finally, your ultimate capturing team is pointless if you can't get to where Pokemon are located. I was serious when I said I wanted her team broken apart for HM slaves. To complete the job that she was hired for, she would have to travel across the land, searching far and wide. With the transferring of Pokemon only working one way, she would have to get rid of one of her other Pokemon. I would have liked to see them hit a roadblock, and in order to continue, someone has to be replaced. It could easily be an emotional decision. The Pokemon that she set out on this journey with can't complete it with her. Her valued team that she has spent 5 years with has to change in order to complete the job. But that doesn't happen. A solution just appears. And this time is no different. Crystal meets up with Yellow. Long story short, it's revealed that Yellow was the one who released the legendary beasts, and then they are caught in a whirlpool. Our 2 volumes end with Gold and Silver somewhere and Entei looming over them. If there was any momentum from the previous volumes, it was brought to a screeching halt. It's the start of a new trainer's journey, and it slows everything down. It doesn't help that, in my opinion, Crystal is the worst main character in this series. Which is shocking, because for the most part, I prefer the female characters in this series. Yellow, Green, and Sapphire are awesome. Crystal, on the other hand, she's boring and dull. She feels like she was made because it was mandatory to have a protagonist for each game. I don't care for her goal of filling up the Pokédex. Her goal is pointless. From the audience, there should be no emotional attachment to it. We know it will never end until the franchise itself ends. She falls into the same problem Ash does. She can never succeed. With every victory and success, the goalposts will always move further away with the introduction of the next batch of Pokemon. Hell, that's a joke in this story arc's epilogue, after she just hands over the completed Pokédex. Unlike Ash, though, the focus can be taken off of her, because there are other main characters, and the quests can be something in the background. In my opinion, she is unfortunately a background character that got top billing, and I fully stand by my accusation that she's the capturing tutorial made into a character. Once again, she does not embody the trials of filling up the Pokédex. She doesn't breed Pokemon to get the baby Pokemon, they just magically appear in front of her. She doesn't struggle or break apart her team for HM slaves. Everything is just handed to her on a silver platter, even down to her Pokemon. If there's any problem that she has, it's quickly resolved through divine intervention. And then there's Suicune. Have you ever played a trading card game, say Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, with a kid who clearly doesn't know the rules and just wants to win and will blatantly cheat and do whatever they can to win? That's Suicune. So, amazingly, it is actually possible for introducing 2 main characters to feel like filler because nothing of note actually happens until the last 60 pages. Well, until the next 2 volumes. Hopefully it doesn't take 5 years this time.